Hey guys, so we're going to do a series of videos for this channel called Modeling Practice. And for this one, we're going to be modeling a phone, right? This is known as a candlestick phone. It's from like the 1920s, I believe. So what we're looking at here is I already went through this and it was a lot of fun. So I'm going to actually do it again. But really, I just want to kind of explain how you go about just blocking something like this out. And this is more or less the block out, right? It is very detailed, perhaps not like the most basic primitives, but I have everything here kind of set, ready to go. So I can start working on a high poly and possibly reuse this to also create the low poly and to do a little bit of both, more or less. And so it's a lot of fun to create things like this. So we're going to get into it. And as far as reference images go, I only have two, and I don't know the actual dimensions to this or anything like that. We're going to work off of this one for a little bit. And I just want to explain why I do this or how I do this. And then we will throw in a little bit of flair from the other one right here, right? So we'll do that. So this should take about an hour for recording, but for you guys that are learning the 3D model, it might take a little bit longer. And I want to go ahead and just reset Blender back to my default settings here. So we're going to be in the 5.2 LTS beta for this. Default scene, nothing special. And I'm just going to go ahead and Shift A, create image reference. Load up the file browser, snag that image. It's going to come in like this, and it's always crooked unless you're in an orthographic view. So press N, backspace on rotation. Set it up like so. Y is forward and backwards, and X is left and right. So that doesn't really matter in our case all that much, but it might matter to you. Who knows? Depending on what you're working on. So I'm just going to press G and Y, move it back. I got this cube. Let's delete it. And so this thing's basically a cylinder for the most part. It's not anything super complex, but I've noticed a lot of guys when they're trying to learn how to create 3D models, they end up overcomplicating the process sometimes. Blocking out is kind of like the section you get a chance to mess with things and see if you can get them working, right? Like as far as like lining up with each other, how you're going to break the model up into different parts and pieces, perhaps. And then you can think about joining them together as you do it as well, and think about your next steps as you're going through that process. So one thing I do want to point out real quick is some people have had issues with this tab for pie menu. Apparently people didn't know you can hit Control Tab and bring up the pie menu, but tab keys now pie menu. When you're modeling, you're going to end up being in object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode a lot. So you want to be able to toggle between these very fast, and just the default behavior with the tab key isn't really going to cut it. Anyways, let's get started here. So I'm going to hit Alt Z. It created the cylinder. It's just going to use a 32-sided one for now. But this is the trick I'm going to show you at the top here. See how the top's a cylindrical shape, right? Right here is like the center of it. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, that center point is usually what I go for. And down at the bottom as well, because I can always kind of find that center point usually. Okay. And we're going to start with that, and we can hit S and Shift Z to do this number. And now you can see I can make it a little bit thinner, perhaps. All right. Now, Alt Z, of course, to get in and out of X-ray. I'm going to be toggling wireframes on and off quite frequently. You can assign a shortcut by right-clicking, add a shortcut for it. My shortcut, I got to disable a Blender shortcut now. It's mouse button 4, but you could use like mouse button 5 or something. Works out pretty well. So now that we got this kind of set here, this is the whole reason we can use this in this manner, is because even though it is in perspective, it's still just a rough guide to get the approximate height right, just general proportion. It's not super accurate, but it's usable, right? While orbiting, hold Alt, you jump into these side views. Kind of skip that part, right? There's going to be a lot of little shortcuts I'm going to use. I try to explain these things in most videos to some degree, but it's better if you learn basic navigation in Blender. It helps out a lot, like holding Alt and middle mouse clicking and gesturing. Gets you into the different views, tilde key. Use that as well if you need to. Alt middle click. Be quite good. So I like to reuse parts as much as possible, so I Shift D and do this in object mode. Bring it down a little, go into edit mode, scale it up even if you wanted to. So Alt Z, hit 1. Remember in edit mode, 1, 2, 3, right? For different selections, the context menu changes. So when you right click, it changes with that. So when you're in edit mode, it's different, right? Vertex, edge, base. But I also hit Control V, Control E, Control F. So context is not the same as the control buttons. So now that we got this going, bring this down here real quick. Go into edit mode, S Shift Z. Origin points sometimes can matter, so if we find a need to adjust it, we will. But I tend to do things the way I think it's just going to work out best. So, we pick that up, GZ it, S to scale it. I'm not worried about this too much. Okay. If I do a loop cut with Control R, click, bring it to the bottom, hit GZ, I can actually bring that back up. Something I do quite regularly. If I add a loop cut here, right click, it goes in the center. I can now scale it. And also Control B to bevel this, right? Do something like that if we need to, right? Later on, we might bevel this one to match the curvature of this base here. Simple enough. You can tweak it until you're happy with it. A lot of little things you can do to actually make that work out. For example, you can add additional loop cuts and just scale, right? Maybe this isn't quite where we want it. We can Alt-S these around as well. Might behave a little bit differently depending on the angles. You can also scale it and try Alt-S-ing as well. And this typically is going to work out pretty well. Okay? You won't have too many issues with that. This base here, you can see it is plastic. It's a different object. I'm going to separate this face. Actually, before we do that, Shift D to duplicate it. Right click, P, separate selection. Go into edit mode with this one. You got to go back to object mode, back to edit mode, and we're good. I'm just going to scale it up a little bit and extrude it down. Okay? Looking for that center point, but the perspective's getting kind of extreme here, so we'll go off of it a little bit. Up towards the top here. This is another area where we got to do a duplicate, separate, possibly. I'm going to eventually figure out how to actually add that function here to separate menu with an add-on, but I haven't got it working yet, so we'll see what happens. But so for now, Shift D to duplicate, right click, P, separate selection. And we'll just do that very fast, rapidly, several times over as we go through the video. I'm just going to pull it up as a cylindrical shape like this for now. All right. And I'm going to keep doing this. And this is one of the things you guys got to practice when you're working on certain kinds of models. You don't keep them all together, okay, as just one shape. Sometimes it's better to break them apart. In my case here, oh, that middle section. How many ever segments you want to use, you can change it up. But typically, I like to have it so I can select every other edge. And that way I can do a reduction like this if I need to. So that's going to be, you're doing a bevel, it's going to be like 2, 4, 8, 16 to do that. Typically, you can sometimes get away with other numbers, but if you don't need a reason for it, don't bother with them usually. And all right, so we got that going. Let's borrow this guy again over here. This is where things get a little bit tricky. I want to model at an angle. So in object mode, you rotate. Make sure it's zeroed out first, right? Rotate it a little bit, try to line it up, right? We can work with it like this, but if we use, like, say, the move tool, you'll see it lines up to the world, and we want it to line up to the object. This is why you rotate in object mode, so you can use local transformations. You can actually use these both at the same time. So let me give you an example. If I hit GZ, right, it's going to use global. And if I hit Z again, it'll use local. Okay. Now, if I switch that to local, it kind of behaves the same way, but back, the inverse of it is. So GZ, and if I hit Z again, I use global. Okay. So it depends on which way you want to move or what you're primarily doing. In our case, we're going to use local. And I can grab this bottom face here. We could use the move tool if we wanted as well. I still find this thing quite useful when I just get tired of hitting G, Z, S, and all that other fun stuff, right? So, or with followed up with X, Y, and Z. So S Shift Z when you're using local will do as you expect, basically. It's going to stay flat, right? And that's what allows us to kind of change the scale there, possibly. You can also Alt S if you feel more comfortable doing that, possibly. It depends on if this is perfectly straight or not. Okay? Be careful with that one. Extrude, scale. And you can see how this works out for myself anyways. I just don't focus too heavily on a bunch of detail right away. I will do big bevels, generally speaking, any kind of big curved surface I'll try to capture. But, not all of the surfaces are going to be like that necessarily. So this is where things get a little bit trickier because you don't want to do any of the like micro small bevels yet. Okay. Not what we're trying to do. Try to capture silhouette for the most part. And you can model it as detailed as you want to, and there's nothing going to stop you from doing that. The only downside of doing that is that shifty duplicate separate, right? The only downside of doing that is if you have to correct things, you have a lot more work to do. So you want to kind of keep it in a nice balanced area where it's not too complex, but it's not too simple. This one we're going to chamfer, grab the bottom face, hit E and S, scale it in. I'm going to ES it again, EZ it, and it'll be working on local for that Z axis. This we can turn into a grid possibly. I'm going to control F it, and then we're going to do grid fill. You'll see it comes in like so. You see here, it's not quite lined up, so you may have to offset this. Once I do that, I'm going to Shift H in edit mode. Proportional edit, set it to sphere. I'm going to grab this middle point. There's a middle point. Okay. I'm going to pull it down. Right? And I can change the size by mouse wheeling. And when we do this, now we Alt H to bring everything back. Look, it's kind of too far, right? So we're going to actually pull all this back up. We don't need proportional edit on now. We need to grow our selection. Control number pad plus. We can do that. I'm going to show you a cool trick with this one, all right? Custom shortcuts can save you a lot of time in Blender. And one of my favorites that I end up setting lately is going to be more or less. We can do right click, change shortcut, control mouse wheel up. All right. Down here, change shortcut, control mouse wheel down. And now if I just grab that center point, I can control mouse wheel. So this is a cool little trick you can pull. If you go all the way though, it's going to just stop working basically. So can't go all the way to the other side of the mesh necessarily. But now you can just flick your mouse wheel when trying to get a hold of something too, if you find that useful, or just tap L. Up to you. And we got that going like so. So now we can grab that point. We can do that. We can hit G and Z, bring it back up where it goes, and then we can leave it like that for now. Okay. We can add detail to this later. We don't have to do it just yet. You're using the move tool if you want. This one I'm going to extrude up right here. It's kind of two ideas on how we do this. Either we inset this, and when you inset, pressing I, hold control, you can pull it out like that maybe. We can do a loop cut, right click it and scale it, and then bevel it. Okay. There's a couple different little ideas there for you. Now, I wouldn't go too crazy with the bevels, 4 segments, 2 segments, up to you. This one's pretty rounded. I think we'll get away with 4 on it, but yeah, so that's that. Now, you got to do these little pieces down here. Now, I'm not entirely sure. To me, what I'm seeing here, it looks like this runs all the way across, but it could just be like in shadow or something. And so just little cylinders is, if something's really complicated in real life and it's going to eat up a lot of your modeling time, how important is that prop in your overall project? Choose what you're going to do. So if it was some kind of like complicated, like foot structure down here, just toss in cylinders. Why not? It's going to save you a little bit of time. So we'll just go to object mode, create a new cylinder, scale it down. We could probably use less resolution, but at the same time, I kind of want to use this mesh in kind of a multi-purpose role. So I might reduce the resolution later on and increase the resolution for the high poly. So it's kind of, if I don't use like perfect cylindrical counts when modeling something, it doesn't really matter to me necessarily. Something that a lot of videos I don't think really explain too well is like when you're trying to use a block out in multiple directions, like you're trying to do a high off of it and a low off of it, possibly. You can do something in the middle as happy medium until you crank up the detail later on. So we're doing an array modifier, excuse me, not an array, a mirror modifier. And we're going to mirror over like this. For now, I'm going to place that origin point as close as I can to the bottom there. Go into edit mode. You can turn your modifiers off in edit mode so they don't confuse you, which is nice. The mirror modifier and some of the other ones actually do something kind of cool, which if you didn't know this is like we wanted to work on this. Let's say we wanted to see it on for whatever reason. We can only work on the one, right? Or so you thought. We can turn on the end results over here and you can see what happens now. We can work on any of them. Okay. It's just going to, yeah, that's cool. Right. I did not realize that until, I don't know, maybe last year or something. And save you a bunch of troubles when you're working with a lot of modifiers and you still want to see the results that could possibly work out for you. I just tapered it in a little bit. I think it looks nicer, so it'll be fun. We're looking for like the 45-degree angle here. You can see cylinders with wireframes a lot of times to help you figure things out. It doesn't have to be perfect necessarily, but if you really wanted it to be, you could make that happen. And so there we go. We got all that going now. Let's finish this guy out up here, this little handle, or excuse me, I don't even know what you would call that thing, to be honest. We're going to create it's a little latch that kind of hangs it up, you know? And so we're going to create or lever, should I say, circle. This I'm going to make more simplified. We can go with maybe 16, or you could go even to 8 if you really wanted to, but probably better to use 16 in this case. The main thing here is that I'm going to rotate this. We can go into edit mode to do this if we wanted to. Okay. So that way our local rotation doesn't change here. We don't have to re-zero it out or nothing. Alt Z, go into edit mode, scale. I try to scale in edit mode usually. There's times I will scale in object mode as well. And we'll get, not necessarily, like if there's something called non-uniform scale. When you change these values one over the others, this is non-uniform. If they're all changing, you can click and drag down and drag it left or right. That is uniform scale. Okay? You can do uniform scale in object mode. It's fine. It gets a little bit kind of weird sometimes with dependencies of like booleans or just other modeling techniques. But so a lot of times I try to keep it one out basically. And you're going to find that a lot of objects you want to end up doing this, but there will be times you break these rules. So it's not really, it's not something that you're always going to be. What am I looking at here? Why am I not seeing that front edge? Barely see it, at least. Alt Q. You can switch between objects in edit mode by hitting Alt Q. Okay. That's something you can do. I'm going to grab these two edges. I think this is enough for us. I'm going to extrude them out. S, X, and 0 it. Flattens it. And now we can do this number. See the origin point here? We can move the faces off the origin point. Take this section that we just did, / if we can't see it. / by the way, will zoom you in and be kind of crazy. So go to key binding or preferences, key map, key binding /. You'll see here in the 3D view, or it should be a mesh as well. Maybe, oh, maybe it doesn't have a mesh section. Just 3D view then, local view /. Turn frame selected off, save your preferences, and you'll be good. You'll get this behavior instead, which is much, much nicer. I think a lot of Blender preferences are just poorly configured. And it would be nice if some of them were a little bit more thought out, at least as far as default configurations go. For now, I'm just going to create this kind of like crazy setup like this. We'll tweak this later. But basically what's going to happen is this is going to end up beveled to some degree, like this. And this one is also going to end up beveled to some degree. And I'm going to combine it together onto the other side. So the way this is going to work out, you can kind of see it almost occurring here right now. This will be over maybe here. This might be out further. I grab these vertices and I pull them out here. We'll start creating a curve that wraps around this. This circle becomes solidified. The solidify doesn't always work out. Sometimes you got to do this stuff manually, but we'll do solidify, even thickness. and it'll go out something like this, and then you add those curves in there. It'll be fine basically. Um, and then on top of that, you mirror it. It's actually a great learning project as well. That's why I wanted to go back and redo this for the most part. You mirror it on a different axes if you need to. I'm gonna use Y. We can bisect it, and we can flip it if needed. So it's going to combine together here at some point in the middle, right? And that's the main thing. We want that to happen. Right? Something like that, right? We can tweak it and tune it and make it nicer later on. This one is slightly canted like this. This, once again, this kind of like hinges back up and down. It's like a lever or something. So if we want to rotate it, we can, but we're going to end up with rotational values. So you have to use local. Not a big deal, but it can sometimes complicate things. So I'd rather finish modeling it out a little bit and then rotate it and position everything as best as I can after that point anyways. Including this, I might model this completely flat, straight up and down. It's at an angle right now, which is fine. And possibly use that. Oh, by the way, I think this here didn't get pushed in far enough. There's going to be a lot of things you discover that are just kind of wrong as you go through your project. Like you're going to kind of round robin it. You're going to go back and forth, check things and make sure they're mostly correct or good and move on from it. So, and then when you see it wrong, go back and fix it and then do that several times over basically. But anyways, what I was saying is I would probably take these and set them back up out proper, but because I only lined up off the image, it's not exactly an even decimal or anything like that. So what we could do maybe is like parent this to this, or we can rotate maybe use an active element right here. So shift clicking, whatever, turns highlighted. That's active element. Backspace it. And normally that will rotate with it. You can see it does when we hit R, but backspacing it over here didn't do that. Let's try this instead. Control P, parent object, keep transform. And we do that. We hit 0 here or backspace it. That's what we get, right? You can actually backspace it if you want. It's going to straighten it up now. So later on, we can actually make this all work out a little bit better, perhaps. So you model temporarily off of it. It's fine. Zero it out if needed. That's why you just pay attention to your rotations when you're in object mode or edit mode. You'll end up with something pretty decent overall as far as setup goes. Because this needs to be possibly out a little bit further. It's not quite lined up the way it needs to go. And it's going to be something around here, basically. It catches onto the side of this cylinder a little bit. So we're trying to line these two different objects up with each other. See how that works, right? Personally, I don't think I need this. When you're using active element, by the way, always, if you for sure are going to stop using it, turn it off because it will mess up your modeling process. You'll make errors with it very quickly. Because if you scale with active element, my active element's this edge here. And if I scale, see what's going on? That's a little bit of a problem. We don't want to do that. So always go back to medium, and we'll get that going like that. We definitely are going to have to work on that more. We're getting kind of hung up there. Let's keep moving on. The rotary dial here, we can try to line up a cylinder near it, but it probably won't be the right size. And so if we just do this 32-sided, scale it down, it's going to be close-ish, but it's probably not going to be perfect, right? That's the main problem with that one. And it's at a weird angle. And this whole thing's got kind of like weird angles going on for it for the most part, I think. But we're just going to place it back in the center here. So easiest way sometimes is just typing in the value on the x-axis here, 0, bam. You don't always have to do special alignments or nothing like that. I want to position it somewhere over here. It's about the size we already need, right? It might be a little bit large by the looks of it, but it's about the size that we need. So we can just kind of work with this. See what we can do. There's a little trick to this one, which I found a little bit later on in the modeling process. I actually missed it at first. They kind of taper at the bottom like this. So we'll have to play around with that and see if we can't get it to line up a little bit better. You notice like down here, kind of starts in this area, I'm thinking, and then ends towards the top. We're not near that right now. I think it's just a little bit too large, maybe. But this is one of the issues you can run into when modeling things, right? You can easily end up at the wrong angles, or this doesn't taper in enough, or all kinds of other little fun, interesting problems you run into. Like, how high does this thing actually go? And like, what is its angle, right? I'd say it's about a 45. It seems about like that. You can always check with the grid in the background. I mean, we might not be perfect, but it'll be pretty close. I think that's good enough, right? I think we're there. We're close. So now I'm going to look at this side here and say, hey, this is not this tall. Something pretty thick, but it's not that thick, right? So we'll do that. And I'm going to extrude it out a bit, and I'm going to scale it. This is where things get tricky, right? Try to keep it simple. Don't go too crazy with it just yet. You know, if you want to pull this off, start another piece for the back plate there, or whatever that is, you can do that. Looks like it's about the same size, but it has a bevel to it on the edges. And this kind of piece, a lot of times I'll use a bevel modifier. And I'll set the bevel modifier and just set it to like 2 segments, just so I can see the difference there. So I know it's 2 different objects. Or, you know, a lot of these you can add bevel modifiers later on when trying to create like the high poly and doing that, or use creases and subdivision and all kinds of fun stuff. So we'll get to that at some point. If we take this and duplicate it now, right click, P, separate selection, you'll notice that when we extrude this out, it's going to, yeah, basically going to have the bevel modifier on it still. And we could do that maybe if we wanted, but not what we really need here anyways. What I wanted to do is make this smaller, extrude it out. And you'll notice this is backwards looking. I have backface culling on, all right? So you might run into this issue where you don't see things like this. You might just have weird looking shading. You can always try using face orientation as well, right? And face orientation, well, it's useful. I don't like it. I just use backface culling. Select it all with A, Alt N, flip the normals, bam, we're done. We're back in business. ES, make that little piece there. Keep it simple for now. We can always add detail later. Booleans and all kinds of other fun stuff. And you can see it's pretty much working out. Okay? Not too bad. I think the fun part about this is like when you start modeling a project like this, and over time, you're going to find that sometimes you model something not just once or twice, but a few times over just to practice on it or get better at doing what you're doing. No matter how many times you've modeled things, they always come out slightly different, almost always. I mean, they really do. No matter how accurate you try to be, it's kind of interesting. So, you know, don't always feel like you got to get everything absolutely perfect and correct, because I promise you, if you do it again and again and again, you'll almost always end up with different results. It might be minor, very minor, but they will be just very minor things that you've done probably. Okay. S Shift Z it. Add a loop cut. Do there. I think I got it a little bit taller than the reference, but I'm gonna just round out the top here. Do a 4 here as well. Not quite as smooth as it could be, but you know what, it would be fun. This section here is a little interesting. I'm actually going to intersect. We're going to do this up. I'm going to create a UV sphere. Oh, before we do this, make sure your origin point's where you need it, or your 3D cursor, excuse me. So right now it's the same spot it's always been, but Shift S, cursor is selected usually, and our origin point's down here for this object, so it's going to go back down there. But whenever you create a new object, Shift S, cursor is selected. Sometimes it's important to get it in the right position or near it. So if we need a sphere over here, there you go. But now we want one over here. So we do UV sphere again. Oop, not icosphere, UV sphere. Okay, not worried about resolution right now. You can always reduce it later, or swap that piece out if you need to. we get that. And it doesn't, you don't have to always join things, guys. A lot of people tend to do that and it's not really required sometimes. All right. And this guy we can work out later. We got to do a bunch of detail. Well, not a bunch of detail. There's really not a lot of detail on this thing, but we do have to do this little detail over here at some point. I don't know exactly the shape of that thing. I can kind of take a guess at it. A lot of times you end up having to do that. More reference images help for sure. Doing your research on anything helps. So we got to do these little screws too, which we'll get to. All right, now we got to do this top section. And this top section is a little bit more interesting, I think. So we're going to go up here. We're going to just duplicate this up and rotate it out. And we'll leave it straight for now. Go into edit mode with it, and we'll Z it and then switch this here. And I'm mostly worried about one part of this before I do anything else. So what I'm talking about is this little edge here, or this big section. That's mostly what I'm trying to replicate first. So like, how big is this thing actually? You know, if I was to come over here and scale it, pretty large, you know, it's not the smallest little thing there. We do have some perspective issues, of course. And you can see I've moved it over. Let's just put it back at X 0. And now, I don't think that's entirely the correct size here, but we'll run with it for now. I'm going to show you kind of what we can do here. It's a lot of fun to get these kinds of shapes just right anyways, or at least where they look just right. It might not be just. We're going to bevel the backside, so it's actually going to be a little bit thicker. You can imagine a loop cut here. Then eventually this is going to bevel in like this, but we're not doing it yet. You'll see. ES, okay. Do this simple if you need to at first, and add the curves later. Need another image really, but we'll just do this for now. We can even try to line that one up to the image as well if we wanted to. I'm just going to eyeball it. I think it's fun. A lot of times, things in real life, you know, obviously someone had to design this thing. You're looking for design cues, like how these will line up with each other, or the angle of this here. You know, there's little things that kind of are used in the design language that could benefit you quite a bit when working on something. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if that's entirely correct, but we'll go with it. The back side of this is why I had 2 reference images anyways, because I just cannot tell with one image what's going on, especially when it's that dark. And this one, you get a little bit more of the side here, right? But it's a different top. So we can go with either or. I'm going to go with a different one on this one since I've already modeled this basically. This I'm going to duplicate, separate, use separate selection. And go and scale it down. This one, I'm going to extrude it out. Have it do something like this for now. I think we'll be okay. A little bit of an odd shape though. Won't be quite right. Thinking this is just more back here. Something along these lines, and it has curve to it. So we'll just do something like this for now. You can change that shape however you see fit, but I think I'll do that big bevel there real quick. When we bevel it, wondering why we're, oh, do what happened here? That will happen, right? If aren't careful. Not exactly sure how it happened, but it did. I'll show you a fix for that. Do it the hard way. Sometimes you go too far, you can't undo things, right? If like the front's messed up, but the back's okay, just start deleting stuff, right? In our case, we hit Control X, see what happens. That's no longer a problem. Basically, we go back through. We can scale it in where needed. We can move tool, do what we got to do. Something along those lines, maybe. It should work out pretty well. You switch my image to the other ones. I think I'm still off here. I think I'm doing the wrong thing actually, but it's kind of like that. Not too bad. I think it might get a little bit larger and have a bit of a different profile right here for the curve. That's maybe it. I don't. Got something really minor going on there. So this is the maybe a little bit of a challenging part. X, delete this face. You want to create the interior of this. Now, a lot of people would just solidify something like this, right? But my problem with solidifying is first, it goes out at a weird angle. There's a way to fix that with the modifier, but not focusing on that. The thing here is that we don't really need to do all these extra interior faces. Like, so we could solidify and then we could just delete the interior faces. But let me show you something different. We can also just take this where we want to have it solidify, basically. Shift D to duplicate it. We Alt S it in. We want. See, Alt S it in. Okay. So let me Alt in. Oops, excuse me. And S Shift Z it as well. Okay. Alt in and then flip. So flipping my normals. I can grab this one, Alt click, Alt Shift click, Control E, bridge edge loops, and you can see what happened there. Right? Now I just grabbed it back, fill it, do whatever else you got to do to it. Pretty much good there. So I'm going to bevel this guy pretty big here. This one I kind of want to take higher. I feel like it needs to be. But we'll go with another 4. It's a little tricky sometimes making these things work out, but you have to fiddle with the polygon counts. Usually a little bit lower works out well for me because I'll add creases and I'll subdivide it, which is really easy to do. But it's not always going to work out necessarily. Let's do a cube. Get up. Scale it. Try to get behind it here. Okay, see how I can't see what I'm trying to do? Okay. The reference image, you can go to its properties, set it to front. Do that for now. Okay. It's too bright. Just turn opacity on and drop it. If you end up selecting it by accident and moving it, it's a problem. This option up here, turn on the arrow, get down right here, turn it off. Okay. I won't let you select it no more. But the only way you can actually select it is off the outliner now. Okay. We got that going. Let's finish this guy out. We've been spending too much time on this. All right. Go faster. For this video anyways. We'll see how this works out. I want to add a taper. I want to add a loop cut. I want this to go down. Kind of blocky. I thought it was more curved. I guess it's kind of blocky. I curved mine on the original. So you see how, like, if I hit Control B, I do a bevel, and I hit C, it clamps it. This is what you want. 2 segments, maybe 4. Okay. AM, merge by distance. We had doubles there. That's all we're doing for now. This is going to eventually work into this territory in here. There might be a number of strategies you can do this or make this happen anyways. But it depends on how you want to really kind of go for it, I guess. You could just extend this all the way and scale it down. And then do like a loop cut here. And maybe you only want to preserve these top 2 faces. Flatten them out, right? Depending on how thick you want it. Might be, you know, the top 4 faces. So it's going to select the bottom here as well. So if that's the case, all of these on the outside here can be taken away, right? Delete those. Keep the back maybe, but we could also delete that. If we wanted to have a continuous flush kind of thing going on here, that's one method. Otherwise, you know, if you wanted to change the shape, you could just use it as an inset or do a Boolean or something like that. But I wanted to go for this now. And so I'm just control clicking So you just select one edge. It's going to do the shortest path selection. Control click F, grab an edge, F, 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 right? You can do this all day long and you'll get something like that, right? Now we didn't flatten it out, so it has a little bit of a taper to it. If you don't want that effect, we're going to use vertex snap. Vertex snap up here. I don't use the magnet too often, but when I do, you just, check it and it'll start snapping, right? And in our case, I'm just going to hit GX. I'm going to hold control and I'm going to snap to there. Okay? / if you can't see it, but GX, hold control. And we could do that on the other side, or we can symmetrize it. So might end up symmetrizing something in this project. Might as well do it on this one. Or maybe not. Got to do here. It looks about the way it looks in my reference. Similar-esque. I think it's rounded here on this side. This could cause a little bit of an issue. When you try to bevel this, you can see you could merge it at the center and get away with it. It's not really going to be a big deal. But you might be better off dissolving some of this, right? And I want this to also kind of turn flat in this area. And if I just dissolve those, this is a problem. Because look, if I control T it, this might be the behavior that I want. But you got to be careful with things like this because this is an n-gon with a curve on one side and it's flat on the other. Probably not going to triangulate well. In our case, we're better off just maybe doing like SZ twice 0. And just doing that on both sides should give you the same result, basically. Okay. So now when we do the bevel, we get this kind of result. Do, I don't know, 8 segments on something like that, maybe. See, so we got kind of a little curve that goes into like a flat area and it goes back curve. Kind of cool. Little weird shapes you got to create sometimes. And that's something I noticed that a lot of beginners and people are missing when they're starting to learn 3D modeling is they don't play around with polygon modeling enough. They don't play around with the edit mesh tools and creating faces manually and objects. And that can be a little bit of a problem. Almost positive this goes in this area like this, but I didn't really look this thing up a whole lot in researches. This piece here, we're going to do a Boolean. I'm using an extension, so go to your extensions, look up Bool Tools, download it, enable online access, all that fun stuff. Bool Tools, if we go look for it, I usually have it set to display as wireframes and then also parent cutters to object I keep on by default. So it helps out quite a bit, but that can cause issues sometimes as well. So there's always like a give and take usually for a setting change or whatever, but parenting isn't always works. Sometimes you got to unparent things when you don't want them to like move with your object. In our case here, I'm going to grab this, shift click this, control shift B. We're going to do a brush Boolean difference. I also set it to manifold in the options. So it's going to use manifold by default. Float's technically the fastest. Exact's the most exact. And manifold works really good on those crazy topologies when you're using like dynamic topology or voxel remeshes when you're sculpting. So it's pretty precise, close to exact. And then also it's not quite as fast as float, but it's still faster than exact. So that's kind of how that works out. And you can see we can actually place this up in here like this. Personally, depending on what you're going for, if you're going for more like a product viz, make it as accurate as you need to. If you're going for a game piece, do we want to make all these separate parts and bake them all individually, or do we want to just kind of close this area up and save some triangles or something maybe? There's always a possibility we do that. So, just if you don't want to see all that extra detail, you can probably get away with making this really simplified, having these slightly intersect with each other. Well, these two anyways. But this could be like one piece. This can be one piece. I mean, you might even combine all that together. Who knows? It just depends on how you want to optimize your low poly, right? And so you have to think about this. And I think this works out pretty well. Okay. I think it might be a little bit too large in the back, but it looks like it's going to work out pretty well. So these, in theory at least, should, I'm going to scale it down a little, kind of line up with each other. Okay. If that's true, I got multiple objects I'm moving in object mode, scaling as well. But if that's kind of true there, I think I might have this a little bit off or a little bit wrong anyways. Pull that out for a sec. I want to extend this slightly, GG twice. And then we can hold down control. Oops, excuse me. GG twice, hold down Alt. We can pull it forward a little bit. Okay. We can readjust that if needed. Pull that back for a sec. Yeah, I don't need it that long. It was kind of too far. But we'll get it. Something like that for now, maybe. All right. And this one, we could actually make wider if we wanted to as well. You just got to select this area as best as we can anyways. All the way to there. Okay. S shift, whatever. S shift Z in our case. We'll make it a little bit wider. And so all I'm doing now is I'm looking at the shapes of these and I'm just guesstimating at the sizes of them. Does that always work? No, it doesn't. But in a lot of cases it does. And we can kind of reposition things carefully. But if we had to reposition something in the mid curve here, that's hard to do. You'll have to reconstruct it possibly. Not really a great deal there, but for the most part, I think we're kind of where I want to be on this thing. I think I'm going to bevel this front edge. It's too sharp. Doesn't have to be as big as that back one, but something like that. This is eventually going to pivot up, and at that point, this won't be like this. It's a straight cut for now. Could I make it so that it has a slight curve to it by doing a fancy boolean or whatever? Sure. I'm not going to care about it that much. So, not for this video, anyways. This is too thick, obviously, I think, right? I think we can all see this. Way too thick. Boolean cut is now too wide. And we just got to tweak it a little bit, right? I'm going to have this all rotate from a point here in the center of what should be a theoretical cylinder, right? I add a cylinder, rotate it out, pull it back up. But this should be our center of our cylinder shape here. Okay. I want this to kind of line up to it too. We'll get it just about right here. Is that the pivot point on this? No, it's not, fortunately. It's not going to be precise. Sometimes you need it to be. In our case, it's not. What I figure we'll do here, just line it up by eye. I mean, you see, I want to kind of scale it again. Not good, but try to line it up by eye a little bit. It's off. And that's kind of the thing. Like, you can model for a bit and then, when it looks off, just go back and try to make it more correct. It might work out well for you, might not. Who knows? In our case here, like, I need to move this back now. You can see that becomes a problem. Oops. Could, in theory, take all this. I don't think this will grid fill. Might. Okay, I guess it does grid fill. But we don't need that shape. I was hoping it did something different. We could turn this into a curve here manually. I mean, it takes a little while, but we could do it by joining these with J. Join this one. Yeah, and so we're going to try to run a lot of these out, but you can see that when you join them, they don't always work out so well. Hoping I could do something a little bit different. How many do we need here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. So use 6. We'll do 6 over here as well. I hope I counted that right. This might let us grid fill now. Hey, it does, but it's not quite what I wanted. I have to dissolve one. That wouldn't work. No, it should actually work out pretty well, but not because of a little situation with. I want this to do different across, but anyways, so all I'm trying to do is connect these up with each other. That's it. We could still do this kind of with this, but not as well as I would like to. I think I just miscounted these. Now I want to space all these out, right? Surprisingly, this version of Blender is going to have spacing from loop tools. So we go to mesh, space edges evenly. We can do things like that possibly. It's fun. I'm always going to forget it's up here though. It needs to be on the right click menu. What do we got here? It's kind of weird finding it there. I'm used to working with like the add-on, you know. They included the add-on basically in this version of Blender. And since the way I wanted to do this, I just realized it's going to not work. The idea was to pull these in and out like this, right? And it's kind of hard to do that without using a bunch of custom transforms, fortunately. Can we do that? Absolutely. Do we want to do this? No. It's actually got to do it like one way on one side and one way on the other. Oh, it's going to be messy. If this was perfectly flat cylinder, we would actually be able to do this, but because it's not, it's going to be a lot more janky, I'll put it that way. We can still technically do it, but we're going to mess our cylinder up. See, it's changing the shape of it ever so slightly. Not probably a good thing. Man, it was worth a shot, right? Normally I try to preserve, yeah, we're not doing it. Terrible. I don't like that. Normally I try to preserve this piece here. I try to preserve where the initial, usually if I use like a circle or something, I'll try to preserve the initial center of that circle. But I made it off of a cube. I didn't do it that way. So we don't have that initial. And we don't have exactly the midpoint of it either, because this is not the same. See? Yeah, so we're all messed up here now. That's good. I like that. Even though I've modeled this before, I'm still messed up because I'm doing things different. But whatever. Let's take this, and I know we did all that work to do this, but let's just delete it for now. Select one of these, Shift G, select coplanar, delete it. Sometimes you gotta start the project over a little bit. Shift S, cursor to selected, right click. No. Shift S, selection to cursor. Gonna keep it in alignment at least. Put it back. Now I can right click, set origin to the 3D cursor. I know it's a lot of confusing stuff, but at least it's in alignment. That's the main thing. This is all perfectly aligned, hopefully. We'll do what I did on the other one. It was a lot simpler. Delete that cylinder at some point. All I did was a cube, just like we did the bottom. I guess technically this works too. I just scaled it up on Z real quick, scale it in like this, pull it out here. Make sure you know you're something like this, intersect them slightly maybe. And then these two, bevel. Oh, pretty close. I wouldn't say it's quite exactly where I want it, but oh wait, what did we bevel at? What is, you gotta be careful with that. What did we do? 4? Okay. Merge. I'd say this is overall fairly decent, but you can see that this should be the center here. Okay? Those vertices should be on top and bottom of it. Something like that. That's what we're looking for. Man, we went through a lot of trouble for this, right? And we ended up doing what I originally did, but we could have got fancy with it. I was trying to show you some cool stuff, but it failed, unfortunately, the way I did it. A Boolean would actually work better, by the way, so let me explain that real quick, maybe. This is why everybody likes Boolean n-gon workflow, because it actually is easier in a lot of ways. If I GG twice this out, GG, hold Alt, bring it out. We could do something really crazy in here where we take a cylinder and we want to match the segments usually, or the topology in the segments. So they need to almost match each other here. They're close. I don't think it's quite right, but it's close. And then you would do a Boolean, right? You just do Boolean, brush Boolean difference or something. Could do something like that. Okay? That's going to save you a lot of trouble in some respects, because, you know, we could still maybe get away with doing like a taper outwards, perhaps, you know, depending on how we want to do this. All kinds of fun stuff you can do with Booleans, but that would work too, right? Anyways, we're not doing that. So we've already done this other way now. Things get messed up sometimes, apparently. I don't mind this intersecting here because eventually I'm going to rotate it all like that. But before we do that, everything going on, it's pretty decent, I'd say. Leave it like that, maybe. What I want to do is make sure that cursor is at that center point where it needs to be, where it would rotate from. Okay, if you can get that correct, Shift A, create an empty plane axis. Grab this and this, Control click this, Control P, parent object, keep transform. Now, instead of rotating these, rotate this one, right? Make sure everything parents to it. I'd have missed that one. Now we just grab that, we can rotate it. It's at zeros. Anytime we want to reset it, backspace it. Boom. Like that for now. When I rotate it up a little bit, you'll see we get a nice angle here that these don't intersect the way they were, which is nice. And we get that. And the local rotation goes for the ride. Okay. Pretty sick. It's a good way of working for initial shapes anyways, but around. It still bothers me that it's like super sharp right there. This bottom one, we could probably do this as well. The original might be like that. We don't have to make X, limit dissolve. We'll get rid of some n-gons. I got rid of a few edges in here. I don't know if you saw what happened. But that's the max angle here. Just lower it. You can try like 1.05, something like that. Usually works well. And for the most part, that is that there. Right. And still looks a little too small to me. I'm going to grab all of this again. Start from the front, maybe. Grabbing all of it except for the back face. Make it a little bit wider. And we can eyeball it from here if we really had to. I think it's just a little bit too small. Okay. Proportionally, like it was too thin. But we can also maybe get away with positioning this origin point here. So what you'll see is that if in object mode, we hit Control period, we can move it. And if I hit GZ and hold Control, remember we're vertex snapping up here. So I hold Control and snap it to this vertex maybe. Control period again. Now we just moved it back. So if I just want to scale it up and down like this, we can do that. All uniform, so it should work out okay. Now we can kind of look at it and say, like, are we kind of seeing the same thing here, you know? Very similar-esque. Is it perfect? No. Is it okay-ish? I think so. I feel like that's a lot bigger for some reason, or bulkier or something. Something else going on there with that one. I'm gonna move that down a bit. Not too much. I'm gonna bring this in. Alt S it out a little bit, or you can move it. And leave it like that. Most part. Slight curve to it. Loop cut here. Alt S that one up. Okay. And give us that rounding effect. Let's do a cylinder real quick. This cylinder, I want to do a radial array with. I'm going to do this a little bit different. Okay. We're going to separate this. Shift D, right click P, separate selection. It gives us an origin point that's at the center. Okay. So I can now take this and extrude it. A, S, scale it down. I want to select I want to select all these. So I'm going to Control Shift click it. I'm going to do a select, check, or deselect. I'm going to make sure I'm not doing the bottom one or the left or the right. I can Control X. Now I can reduce that a little bit. We don't need that much on this, maybe. We're going to go into edit mode, scale it down. We're not going to change anything here. We're just going to move it. Keep the origin point in the middle. We're scaling in edit mode, right? This is what we're looking for. Something along these lines here. And a little bit bigger, maybe. Something more like that. I'm going to go into edit or go into this object. Hold Q to it. S Shift Z. Bring it in. Bring that edge down. I don't think that's right. Give it a little depth back there too. Just not much. Okay. This needs to poke through all the way. Move it in edit mode. The reason for this is we want to do an array, and I just wanted to use the origin point. Okay. So if I do an array, the new modifier, right? We can switch it to radial or circle, I guess. And the circle one, we can use, instead of full, we can do arc. Now we can do our arc. In my case, if I just RZ it, I want it to start somewhere over here. RZ and hold control, maybe. Yeah, that way we get nice numbers here, but increase the count. I believe it's 9 or something like that, right? Actually, let me count these. Oh, 10. Okay, I got that wrong on the other one. What it was. I forgot 0, right? It's 9 and 0, not 10. So that's what. You see how that works out? I still have that local rotation now. You go into edit mode to do it though, because if you move it in object mode, you move the whole thing. This is just how I've done things for a long time, and it tends to work out. Except we don't have to set up the empty and use the old array modifier and all that, right? Works out pretty well. Control Shift B, brush Boolean difference, and there you go. Okay. Something like that. There's a lot of stuff in here. We could still model screws and all that other fun stuff. Let's do. I'm not going to get fancy with these screws. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to edit mode. I'm going to do this number. Or you could just right click, subdivide it. Maybe do it twice. And then transform to sphere. Boom. Okay. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's a quad sphere, basically. Okay. Go into edit mode. Delete the bottom. Grab here. Press F, ES. Got a screw. Okay. Origin point's right at the base of it. Cool. If you don't like this setup the way it looks, shift click here. You're going to select one of these as an active element. Use active element, S and Z it down. Okay. So you can just do that number. I don't want to do a bunch of work here, so I'm going to do a Boolean, right? And I'm going to just keep this as simple as I possibly can. I don't want to get too carried away with creating a screw. Now, they usually have some pretty unique looks to them, but for this prop, I don't think. As far as like, sometimes they taper and do things like this. So Control Shift S if you're trying to achieve that, but I'm not trying to do all that right now. I'm just going to do a brush Boolean difference. And now the base is a subdivision mesh, possibly. We don't have creases on it. So when let's turn the Boolean off first. You'll see what I'm talking about. Control 1 through 5 adds a subdivision modifier. Should be at the top. But it makes everything squishy and soft. We go back and select areas, increase them. So Shift E, and click an edge. Hold click an edge, turn subdivision off in edit mode. We'll click the edge, Shift E it, take it out to 1 over here as well. Then when we subdivide, we get this result. Okay. You see, not a perfect spherical shape. It is a little bit off. It's a little bit cuboid still. But it's usable perhaps, and we can certainly do that. And we can subdivide it up now, and this works with the Boolean too. This is oftentimes where I think manifold works well when you have denser meshes. But however dense you need it to go. Later on, you can use things like this so that you can do something like a remesh workflow where you're doing like the or not the old school, but the voxel remesher, um, remeshing and then smoothing. I'm just going to do this for demo, but we're going to take these away in a second. All right. So if you can get remeshes done well enough, they turn out pretty okay fun. For a really small piece like this, it probably wouldn't be a big deal because we're probably going to see it in the texture like this, not like this. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it really makes the most use, I think. Unless you can get them smooth enough, which I always struggle with. But for now, that's it. There's other kind of tricks to that I'm not going to go over in this video. For now, I'm just going to use these as placeholders. I'm not even going to use the subdivision, I don't think. Hit it auto smooth, perhaps. Shift D and duplicate it and convert it to a mesh. If this origin point matches this origin point, we can update this one later on. Okay. It's very easy to do so. What I want to do is start putting it onto the model. So I am going to go ahead and do, we're going to do face. We're going to set it to center and align rotation to target. Whenever you're doing this, control period, you want to see Z pointing in the direction that's up for your model. So negative Z being down here, that's going to be the surface that it goes to. You'll see how this works out. But basically, we've set this up now like this. I can go ahead and take this model and scale it down a little bit, maybe. I want to keep these scale values if I'm going to swap them out later. So I can just get in here, hold control, and you'll see on this low poly mesh, it's going to come in at a slight angle. Okay, you can't really avoid this, unfortunately. Snap to the edge, perhaps. I actually kind of like it sometimes. The reason being is that things weren't always manufactured perfectly back in the day, and if it's an antique, I think just having a little slight cant to the screws kind of is interesting. But maybe it's something you do, maybe it's not something you do. It's up to you. I think this is still too high or something. Let's take all of this real quick, and we can hide this too for now. We can grab all this and move it together. It's fun. I think it's just too far down a little bit in that area. I'm just going to readjust it. As long as you move it together, it should be fun. This is too big. I'll scale it down. Okay, Alt D, hold control, boom, right? We can go lay these out manually if we wanted to. Find that exact edge if you want it to be placed pretty close to perfect. Keep Alt D in it. And that will create linked duplicates, which are something like an instance. It's like a variable instance of sorts. You see here, I think that's too big. Maybe there's smaller screws up here, but I doubt it. So this value now, and just use it down here on these ones, right? It's just Control C while hovering over a value, and then I can Control V while hovering over a value. Probably a way to paste all, but I don't. Probably in the right-click menu too. I just usually don't even bother with Control V a couple times real quick. Boom, they're changed, right? Now we get up here. We're going to do that same thing. And this one, this realistic, I think it only has one screw in my reference, but the other one has 4, so I'll just go with the 4. We need a little element over here, and you can see we could Shift S, cursor is selected, Shift A, create a cylinder. Maybe we use a 16-sided cylinder for this one. Want to edit mode, scale down. Actually pull out this way. Using the Z axis now. This one might be a kind of a hex nut. I'm not sure, but I'll just leave it a cylinder for now. I gotta switch it out later. I will. Pull it forward. inset. It doesn't maybe need to be that much of an extrusion there, but wanted to have a little bit more of an interest there. Loop cut, slam it, pull it back out. That'll give you a flat edge there. That's a nice trick. I've been using it for a while, but that's why I don't use merge, auto merge anyways. For that reason, particularly, unless there's a very specific use case I need auto merge. Oops, our origin point's not exactly where I want it. Yeah, / Z, hold control, snap it. Oh, we're doing a line rotation. You got to turn these off too, which is annoying. Then switch it back to vertex and closest perhaps is the default. Now, good. Not that it needs to be perfectly aligned to the other, because you're probably going to Boolean things like these together at some point. Maybe, who knows? Depends on how you optimize, but you might just float it. I mean, people do that all the time. So, not a big deal. I'm just going to mirror real quick off the base. Okay, that's as long as it's got a center origin point, we're good. This is where so many guys struggle with things, I think. Modeling can be a little bit messy sometimes. It can be a little bit confusing. It can cause problems, right? A lot to do. There's a lot to remember. This is still curved apparently, so we'll use it. I'm going to go ahead and control period this. The X, I'm just going to move it out to where I think it would pivot from. Now I can just rotate it a bit without losing my rotation values. Right? I just want to do something like this, perhaps. We're going to do this, destructively for a second. I'm going to move it out a bit. Something like right there. Then this, we can bevel. An edge. It's kind of hard to tell what it's doing, but it is just an edge. Yeah, we're going to have to tweak this a little manually. Not going to work out quite the way I thought it was going to. Probably get away with chamfer even over here. We want to move on the two axes at the same time. Don't forget that. And I'm not really wanting to work with these here. So what I'm going to do, /. Why did that one on? I'm going to grab these two faces and hit Control X. Go into vertex selection, dissolve that vertex. We're good. That's what we're doing. Now I should be able to just select these outer edges. I want to push this to the center. You can move this in two directions. Should stay in alignment. I'm going to reconstruct this manually because it's not leveling exactly how I thought it was going to. Okay, but I don't want it to do. And I want to create like a nice smooth curve through here that looks appropriate for this piece, like it could actually hang up on it. Yeah, a little bit fiddly there with that solidify. That happens sometimes, Can happen. Got like a weird kind of thing going on back here. I'm not sure what caused that exactly, but wondering if I just moved the vertex by accident. Grab the other side. That happens too. Happens a lot. Yeah, that's much nicer, whatever that is. All right, we'll go with that. And we're going to apply the solidify by hitting Control A. Okay. We get that going. I think it's maybe too thick though. We'll go with it for now, but I kind of want to make it thinner, so go with it for now. Just remember when we're doing the mirror, make sure it's set to bisect and flip. Control A to apply it. Come over here. You twice that back if you want. And I'm at a weird angle, so it's not working too well. You can also do like G, Shift Y, hold Control, and snap it. Another one. Two directions, snap right. That's it. That's pretty much all we need. they combine together, and then it's fun. Whatever. Does need to be a little bit taller here, though. Instead of moving the whole thing around, I'm just going to call it a day, right? It's still, yeah, tons of stuff we can model and get into like the real nitty gritty type of things. Might just want to do another cylinder. We'll go with another 16-sided. You can also loop cut these down the middle and then delete half. Press A, F, and now you gotta, see what I'm saying? Do that. This one we're going to scale uniform. Place it down here. Root it up a bit, scale it in again. This has a slight curve to it. I'm not exactly sure how I want to pull that off exactly. I'll just scale it out real quick and maybe bevel this a little. Yeah, something like that. That'll work too. There's two wires that come out of this. There's one that goes to the wall or a little power thing or whatever is underneath it, and then one that goes to the handset. I'm just going to do the handset one. Okay. We're going to use a curve, Bezier curve. So Shift A, create curve, Bezier curve. Go to edit mode. We got up here like this. We're going to snap this. Actually, no, we're not going to snap it. What we're going to do instead is we're going to position it with the 3D cursor. So you can snap it using any of the snapping methods. It's pretty fast. But what I want to do is I just want to go here, select this, Shift S, cursor to selected, right? Go back to this object, grab that handle. We're going to do a Shift S selection to cursor. Boom, like that. Now we can line it straight up. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it just lined up. Maybe something like that. Scale it in a bit. Well, the handles, that is, on one side. Scale it in a bit and adjust it later. This one, we're going to also do very similar. Same thing, basically. Selection to cursor. And now we can jump into our views here. Line it up. Rotate it. Rotate it. And to get us to this point here, you can see it's very large. Let's not do that necessarily. Between these two, we can click them both. If click them, subdivide. Do one at first, because you don't usually need very many. You probably need less than you really. This is going to do this number. I've already laid this out before, so I know kind of what I'm going for here, but it took me a little bit to figure out exactly how I wanted to lay that cable out. The main thing is I wanted to have a little bit of a profile from the front so that it would look kind of cool, like a little S-curve or something. And so that's all I was doing with that. It's nothing too crazy, but it's things you think about. You know, when you're not sure how you want to do something, because the reference images of that wire were pretty rough, right? They weren't that great looking. They were just, you could do them rough if you want. You could do variations later on, perhaps, but is this super realistic? Maybe not as much, but good enough for now. And yeah, just kind of finesse it real quick. It doesn't take that. A lot of people, they say that working with curves like this is too hard and slow and challenging. I don't think so. I think it's actually quite easy. You can actually move the handles like this and tweak things, and you got to find the balance. If you're going for something smooth, you know, tweak it just right. If you're dealing with a lot of points, maybe you want to use like an add-on or something, but whatever. We're not doing a lot of geometry, or excuse me, curve geometry section and its properties. Depth. That's all we need for this one. Tweaking these values can be useful sometimes. To get a better triangle count. Typically, what I do if you're doing game models is I will do a low poly model at least, where I create a section of the, like one of those little sections. Imagine this is it. And you UV unwrap that and then you array it. 3 times over, you'd have to weld it, I believe, to merge the doubles or whatever, unless you got merge in here working. Okay. That'll create, if this is unwrapped, that'll create tiles basically, right? You do a bigger piece. You don't have to keep it small necessarily. Like some loop cuts in it, but it's still tiling, right? 2 times up. When you're texturing in Substance Painter, you'll get seamless on top and bottom of this one. You paint in this area. You might have to offset your UVs to do that as well, but whatever the case, this should work out. You just make that and put it in your low poly unwrap somewhere. Okay, and then that should work. Okay, you don't even necessarily have to do a hide a low bake on that, but you might still attempt to do that anyways. It was too thick. And then once you bake something like that, you could unwrap this one to it repetitiously if you really wanted to, or take this and relay it back out appropriately. Or there's all kinds of ways of working. You can technically get rid of the depth here and have this array onto this. So there's a lot of little tricks. We're not going to go through all that in this one, but there's a lot of cool little tricks that exist in 3D modeling world that you really have to know the tools inside and out to kind of start doing those ones, right? I don't think that should be that far back like that. And I'm not real sure where this comes from over here, this little extra piece, but I'm going to go with this and I'm going to duplicate it, separate it, back to it, make sure we don't have no modifiers on it. I'll say it's just a rather thin piece, perhaps. And stick it out like this for now. We can even chamfer this if we wanted. We could try extruding it out. Taking it up maybe. Take it up on Y. Sorry. Wrong one. SZ and 0. Goes up something high like that. At least I think it does something like that. It comes up on the side, I know that, but I don't know where it's coming up out of. It might be between these two. Or it might be right on the side somewhere on one of these. But I don't know exactly how that works because I don't have a picture of it. So this is where once you start realizing you don't know something, you'll look for the picture, right? If you gotta, you gotta. Okay. But yeah, we got this going. I'm gonna just loop cut this here. Take that and I'm gonna extrude it out. I don't think that's the right angle. It doesn't look like it. I want to go out on a very specific angle. Let's use this real quick. You should technically kind of line up with each other. So let's use this one. We're going to use a custom transform. Go back, OQ to this one. If I extrude this, it should move out on that edges normal, basically. Should work out pretty well. You would think local would work on that one, but I guess it wasn't really working out for some reason. Extrude again. I'm going to delete this corner. Press F through there. I'm going to take this one and GG twice it down. Twice that down. It might be too thick. And then so AM merged by distance. We'll take these two here. We can continue pulling them out. We can bevel them. Mouse wheel it up. AM merged by distance. Kind of slamming into the face there. So I'm not a big fan of that. I'm done with this edge too. I'm not going to get rid of it. We'll just go back global or local. We'll pull this down a little bit more. For now, I think there's a number of things wrong here, obviously. But I'm not going to try to worry about it too much. Try this one. I think this will work too. Maybe even better. Okay. This should be in alignment now. Okay. It's close. It's not perfect, but it's close. That's what I was looking for. See, I can almost move these ones now too, right? Yep. I can't because this one is at a weird angle. We could eyeball it maybe. Might get away with it. But yeah, you gotta be careful with some things that you model. They get very weird orientations and can cause problems perhaps while modeling. And this is just a block out, guys. Like the blockout's like 90% of the work, I'd say. Well, maybe not 90%, but it's at least half, you know? If you can get something going like this, it's easier to convert it into a high poly and then think about how you want to handle the low poly as well. Just model, guys. Don't be afraid of modeling something like this. Don't be afraid of getting in there and just be logical about it. Like, this is a different part. Okay. This, maybe it's easier to just separate for now. It's a different part. Some things you can model, are a little bit more complex, but something so simple like this project, anyways, you don't have to go crazy with it. And then from here, you can convert this kind of stuff into subdivision meshes, right? You turn it into quads, it becomes a subdivision mesh, right? That's the whole trick to all this, right? Hope I duplicated that. Yeah. Mostly quads. Control F, you can grid fill those. On the outside, at least. Inside, we didn't do the loop cut, so gotta do that. Once things are quads, they subdivide. They just don't have holding edges. And add a bevel modifier, perhaps. That's the thing. You can be completely lazy about this too, where maybe you do select sharp edges. Be an edge select when you do this, by the way. Like sharp edges now. And get rid of the ones you don't want. We keep these ones. We're going to add creases. 50. Rid of those. Shift E, drag it back. Might have to do it twice. Or type 0 on the end panel over there. There. And this is where a lot of guys go wrong. They don't understand you can do things like this, right? Subdivide it up to whatever you need it to be. Or just below what you need it to be. Hit Control A and apply it. Now you got a high density mesh. Subdivide it again. Turn the creases off. Okay. Actually, you don't have to get rid of them. You can just turn them off. Boom. Super sharp subdivision mesh. Yes, it's high density. I got it, but it's smooth. It is tight. It is not. I think it's too sharp actually for that one. I think it was too sharp. So we'll just do a level 1 subdivision. Apply. Okay. We will go back. Subdivide again. Turn creases off. You can see it becomes a little bit softer, right? It's really that easy. Like, how do you want to do it? I guess you could do this non-destructively. I didn't think about that. But say you do your first one, creases. Do a second one. I was like, I didn't think of it, but I knew about this one. Creases off. So this one we'll do levels 2, levels 1. But we can also turn that one down first. Do this one up. 2, 3. Okay. Then follow it up with this one. The only downside of this is we're not really controlling everything here quite the way we would want. It's fast, but it's not perfect. But it is fast. So, if you want to tweak it and make it better, you could always go through. And you can see we got an Ngon here. That's why that's acting usable, though, possibly. Well, again, go back, scrape it up, multi-res, sculpt it and stuff like that if you need to. But yeah, pretty cool. It works. Cool. We're done there. This is the project. This is an hour and 30 minutes worth of modeling now. Not really worried about shading on this one. Not yet. But if you want, just go ahead and throw some shade auto smooths on. See what it looks like. You can tweak those as needed. make it work better for yourself. I'm gonna hide these. I don't see them. Oh, actually, I kind of need those back, don't we? Gotta shade these auto smooth too. Okay, then we can hide them. Whatever reason, that's how that behaves. But all right. And if you are into some cheap thrills, what you can do is you can add bevel modifiers to some things as well. And if you're going for like mid poly models, this is like half the battle right here. So you do your basically your mid poly. A lot of times you get away with just doing your chamfers on it later. We're going to do a little bevel and weighted normal possibly. Weighted normal has to go. Well, actually, I don't think it has to, but for whatever reason, I end up bugged where weighted normal has to go at the bottom. It should technically work before the smooth by angle, but sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what that's about exactly. Kind of a weird thing, I guess. But yeah, we're pretty close, and it's not exactly what I did before. I put a little bit more time into the one I did before. It's closer to 2 hours instead of hour and 30 minutes. You can always try going faster if you want. It'd be useful. This section here, check this out. I'm going to show you guys. If we edit this one, by the way, because we did the link duplicates, it should edit all of them. Okay. Show you guys something though. Right here, /. Alt click that edge so we have it. Select loops inner region. Maybe switch it around. We'll do select bigger on this side. I can hit E and in our case, oops, actually set it to local. E and Z. And just give it a little bit of something like that. For now, remember we got a little flat spot there. So put little modeling reminders in for yourself. Basically, like I know this needs to be cut out here at some point. And this process is just going to continue, right? Like I'm just going to do a cube boolean right here just to remember I got to cut that out. That way I don't forget about it. You can probably pull that all the way up. The other one's on top of it, right? Yeah, so basically, reminder, it's there. This one I'm going to scale. Oh, actually, bad habit scaling it non-uniform in object mode, but I mean, it's not a bad habit. You can do it. It's nothing wrong. Be careful with it. Blam, there we go. Now we have modeled basically the same thing we started with, the video with anyways. Very similar. Pop's a little different, but I think you get the idea. A little bit of fun. This could have probably went a little smoother. So do always like an after review, like a post-mortem. Start thinking about, like what went good, what went wrong, what we struggled with, what we didn't struggle with. Or your whole project all the way through. If you're doing the low poly to high poly, but each section, like block out. Kind of take some notes on what went well, what didn't go good. High poly, what went fast or didn't go fast, right? What went well, didn't go well. Same for the low poly, UV mapping. Just keep a little notepad next to you at workstation. It's always useful. And then what eventually you end up doing is as you kind of do this, as you go through it, you have like a whole laundry list of things you can improve upon, and you can, continue doing practice models of different little parts and things like that, perhaps. Things that gave you trouble. So joints maybe, or whatever it ends up being, the curves. Maybe you need to do some studies on curve tool because it took too long, right? Like identify what your weak points are and you'll be much better off for it anyway. The high poly is where I would start adding materials, so I can do a material ID for a substance painter. Not this one necessarily. Although a lot of times I get carried away and I start coloring things up anyways. Even though this is, you can't do it at this point, just use it later on, but it's not really required always. So no need necessarily is what I'm saying. Right. So anyways, guys, we'll do more videos like this. These little, I'm calling them modeling practice videos, but They're not going to always be this in depth. They're not going to be like a big go at a project. It might just be small topology examples doing different parts of things, but not necessarily the whole project. Project videos, I'm going to end up doing where I go through the whole thing, but it's going to be time lapse mostly, talking through it like what I went through on a project. But a lot of times, really it comes down to this: block out high poly, low poly. Sometimes it goes the other way. You block out low poly model and then turn it into a high poly, or you do something in the middle, which is what a lot of guys do. Or you work non-destructively, so you can make both at the same time. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, so and then you can mix and match all kinds of different things together. Like maybe we have a real organic piece that needs to be on this as well. Like there's some kind of trims and stuff that look really cool here at the bottom. We could sculpt those and use voxels. We don't have to keep everything quads and subdivision necessarily. We can use a mix of everything if we. So some guys were asking in an old video, anyways. They were like, "Why don't you just use this as your low poly and then just use a bevel to make a high poly?" Is that a thing you can do? And the answer is yeah, you can actually. You actually can do that, but it's a little bit tricky because you don't get extra curvature or nothing in here, anything special. So sometimes they don't look much different than what we see right here, right? And that can be a little bit of a problem because you might want to add little dings and dents and stuff all over this. Sometimes it's not a problem. It just depends on your project. And in our case, kind of interesting anyways. See, weighted normal looked like it works this time, right? So weird. Blenders sounds pretty odd. Sometimes you got to put that first and then like I do it once at least and I know it kicks on and it starts working after. It's bizarre. Maybe it's a bug. Sometimes you got to fiddle with things and try to figure out your problems. And fortunately, all the YouTube videos in the world can't do everything for you as far as like answering your questions. But, when you're new to all this, it's definitely overwhelming and that's understandable. Like, why does this look so sharp? Angle mounts on smooth by angle. Lots of little modifier tricks and other just random various things that you'll eventually find yourself having issues with. This one not working? See? It's so weird, huh? Anyways, now it's working. I'm gonna shade weird because there's no extra edge in here. Control Shift click, boom, right? This is gonna select all of it. Oop, it's supposed to select all of it. Anyways, yes, there. That's gonna help the shading. At least I thought it was going to. What do we got? A sharp edge in here or something? On here. Yeah, I guess it's a sharp edge or something. Very bizarre. He's a weighted normal or something. Oh, okay. That might help it. Weighted normal. I think it's because I still had. I guess I don't have custom normal data. Anyways, yeah. So that's it for this video. It ran on kind of long, but we do in fact have a phone. Call it phone part 2 now, I guess. I'm gonna do that as a part 1 and then just stop recording, and it's just wanted to model it and kind of enjoy it. It's fun. I think it's a fun project. I don't think this is quite right. That definitely doesn't look right, but you can tweak things. Oh, the booleans, if they're parented, they'll move. You don't have to select them. Otherwise, you're going to unhide them. Go back to town on that one. But you can see they don't line up perfectly topology wise, but we can make that happen later if we need to. But we need it in the right spot for sure. That's what's going on there. All right, I'm going to actually end the video now as I run on to get carried away, right? But yeah, that's it for this phone piece. We'll do more like this for sure. Won't necessarily be modeling practice videos, but there'll be modeling projects at some point more like this that are time lapse instead of me talking at regular speed. Because 2 hours is a long time when you're working on bigger projects. Yeah, they take a while. They take, depends on what it is, but it could take weeks. So time lapse it will be for on bigger stuff. It has to be, fortunately. But the bare essentials you'll understand with smaller modeling projects, simpler items, complex stuff. You have to watch the time lapse because there's no way anybody can explain it in a single hour-long video without flipping through it and stuff. So yeah, anyways, that's it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one.